Hello beautiful people, let's get started with today's look. My eyes are primed with the Urban Decay Primer Potion in Original and the Fenty Beauty Soft Matte Pro Filter Foundation Primer. For today's look, we're going to be dipping into the Amrezy Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and I'm so excited to finally have this in my hands. So I'm going to start with the shade New Yorker, and I'm going to be building this up on the perimeter of the lid space, so in the crease, above the crease, and on the outer portion of the lid. Next, I'm picking up the shade 1988, so I'm using this shade to deepen in the crease. I'm focusing first on placement, and then after that I'll start blending it out. So I'm also kind of creating like a wing shape on the outer portion of the lid, and you'll see that I'll switch between the opposite side of the brush I'm currently using and the previous brush that I used, and I'm just making sure that everything is blended out as smoothly as possible. With the shade Cupcake, I'm going to be using my finger to apply it on the center of the lid, and I'm leaving a little opening on the inner and outer third for an eyeshadow later. I'd say that this is definitely one of the shades I had the most amount of fallout with, so if you have a eyeshadow base or a concealer or glitter adhesive, I'd say put that on the lid first so it has something to stick to, and then after that apply the eyeshadow, because I had a lot of transferring issues going on, as you'll see throughout the video, and if you want to save yourself, put that base down, sis. And right now I'm just applying the shade Barb on the inner third of the lid. I went in with my finger first, and then I was using the brush to kind of clean up and carve out that shape. And now I'm using the shade Shemsa, and I'm placing this on the outer third of the lid space, of course still creating like that wing shape. And then I'm also bringing it a little bit into the crease, like right above where Cupcake is, and just making sure that I build up that shade as much as I want it to be visible, and just making sure that everything is blended out. Now I'm going in with Hugo, and now I'm placing this kind of like on the outer portion, still a little bit close to Shemsa. So I'm using this to deepen in the overall look of the crease area and just building that shade up. And you guys will see over the course of me creating this look, I'll keep dusting off like the eyeshadow that was transferring from the lid, and I'm just making sure everything is blended. This is definitely one of those looks you're just gonna have the patience to just go back and forth between shades to make sure everything is showing up the way you want it to. Moving on to the face, I'm using my e.l.f. color correcting stick in the shade Deep to even out my complexion and cover up my hyperpigmentation so I can have an even base for my foundation, highlight, contour, y'all know the drill. So I'm going in and I'm going to blend everything out with my damp beauty blender, so it's damp with water. And I went a little heavy-handed with the color corrector. I don't know what else to say. Like, it kind of, I'm not even gonna lie, it kind of started to change the color of my foundation and my highlight, and I was like, ooh girl, like you put a lot this time. Like, did you need all that? Did you really need to do that? And I was like, nah, but I did it anyway, so we gonna run with it. And then now I'm just going in with my Fenty Beauty Matchsticks in the shade Espresso to contour. And to highlight, of course, my Fenty Beauty Matchsticks in the shade Suede. So this is when I started to notice that like it was kind of picking up the color corrector that I put down, and I was like, ooh girl, like I hope this comes together later, because Jesus, like this isn't what I wanted. I didn't want to be orange. I wanted a good base. Oh god. I mean, it worked out in the end, guys. Don't worry, like, just trust the process. It worked out in the end, but ooh girl, I put too much. I know I put too much. And now I'm just going in with my Anastasia Beverly Hills Stick Foundation in the shade Ebony. So this was the first time I actually put down all of my face products before I blended it out. And I liked doing this because it definitely helped with placement again. Like I said in my last video, I've been focusing more on placement instead of putting a product down and then blending it out to a certain spot. So I put contour, highlight, and foundation down, focus it on the area where I want it to be specifically, and then I started with blending out my contour first, then after that I went into my highlight, then my foundation. And also I'm using the e.l.f. Beauty Blender, and I'd say because the sponge is so dense, it's a lot easier for me to get the blend I want if I use a lighter hand. So having a lighter hand on top of putting the product in the right spot helped a lot with just getting the look I was going for. So even though your girl's a little bit orange, just a little bit orange, you know, a little bit orange, at least I got my placement right. So, you know, a lot of trial and error, guys. You know, I'm going to keep it 100 with the areas where I went a little bit in too much, but overall I am really happy with the way everything was sitting. And also when it comes to blending out my nose contour, now I use my smaller beauty blender because I don't want to shift the product around too much. So I'll use it to blend it out, and then I'll go back to the bigger beauty blender when I want the kind of like the line to be a little bit less of a line on the nose, you know? But I'm really happy with how things are starting to look with my complexion products. Now I'm just going in with my KVD Vegan Beauty Translucent Setting Powder, so I'm going to be baking the nose area while I set everywhere else. So I'm just putting on the powder there and just cleaning up the nose shape, making sure like I have that area sitting, you know? And then after that I will use the powder to press into all the areas on my face that I highlighted. So I'm kind of like, I wouldn't consider it a bake because I'm not really leaving it on too long for like the other portions of my face, but I kind of like let the powder cover everywhere on my face and then I blend it out after, so it's a matter of seconds. It's not like I'm leaving it on for minutes, but I just like to make sure that I have the powder everywhere on my highlight, and then I'll blend it in with the beauty blender, and then the nose will be the last area I blend out. Next, I'm grabbing my MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in the shade Dark Deep, and I'm going to be using this to set everywhere else on my face. Grabbing my Becca Cosmetics Multitasking Perfecting Powder in the shade Deep Bronze, I'm going to be using this to add in my contour back and to kind of define that shape. I don't really use this product a lot. I've had it for a while and I kind of like a softer contour, and I know like I got this in a deeper shade, so I don't want to go too heavy-handed, so I'm just using it to add kind of like a little bit more depth. And I'm just using my previous brush to make sure that everything is blended out and it doesn't look too harsh. Okay, so back to the eyes. I'm grabbing my NYX Cosmetics lip liner that I actually use in my waterline. It's in the shade Club Hopper. So I'm focusing this on the outer portion of the lower lash line, and then when I get halfway through, you'll see that I'm carving out just a little opening right there for the eyeshadow that I'll be placing later. Picking up the shade Yugo, so I'm going to be focusing this on the outer portion of the lower lash line, connecting it up to where that shade is on the upper portion of the lid, and just making sure I'm building it up but also keeping it super close to the lash line. I don't want it too blown out. With the shade 1988, I would be focusing right next to where we place Hugo, so I'm just focusing this on the inner portion of the lower lash line now, and I will go in with a smaller brush just because I want to keep that area still small, closer towards where the inner eye tear duct area is. And with the shade New Yorker, I'm going to be using this to blend out the lower lash line, create a smooth transition, and just make sure everything is blended out without any harsh lines. With the shade Anastasia, I'm going to be placing this in that little opening that we created right by the inner tear duct. And to create my liner, of course, the KVD Vegan Beauty Tattoo Liner in the shade Trooper Black. And here's where things start to get a little bit tricky. So I'm focusing on extending, like if I were to draw a straight line from my upper lash line going straight down, I'm focusing on extending that line and then creating like a small triangle in that area just to kind of fill in the space between that eyeshadow and where I'm drawing my liner. I did mess up, so you'll see that I'll go in with my makeup remover wipe, go in and remove it and start over. This is just one of those looks that takes a lot of patience, but I'm doing my best to keep it even with the other eye and making sure I create the shape I'm going for. After I'm done with the liner, I'm just going back into the shade Anastasia and touching it up. Now I'm just dipping into the shades New Yorker and 1988. I'm just touching up the areas above the crease and in the crease where I placed those shades already. So this is what I was talking about earlier in the video where my lid color was transferring onto the crease. So I'm just making sure that the placement of everything is where I want it to be and it looks as clean as possible. Moving on to blush, I'll be using ColourPop in the shade Parakeet. And for highlight, my favorite of course, Anastasia Beverly Hills Amrezy Highlight. And when it comes to highlighting my inner corner, I'm just focusing this highlight above where I placed the eyeliner. And for my lashes, they are from Anastasia Beverly Hills as well, and they're in the style Fashion. For lips, of course, I'm starting off with my Melt Cosmetics lip liner in the shade Edible. Then I'm going to grab my KVD Vegan Beauty Everlasting Liquid Lip in the shade Hilda. So we're doing a little bit of an ombre today. So I'm starting off with putting this on my lips and I'm just going to keep blotting it together to blend out with the lip liner. Then I'm going to use my Melt Cosmetics matte lipstick in the shade Voyeur. So I'm focusing this on the center portion of my lip and then I'm going to blot it together. I'm going to keep just focusing that in the center area. So I'm going back into that KVD liquid lipstick and just making sure that everything is blended and in the right spot that I want it to be in. And to complete this look, I'm going in with my e.l.f. Illuminating Mist and Set Spray. So I'm just going to fan myself off for a little bit, and then I'll go in with my beauty blender, use a super light hand, and press everything into the skin. That's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Bless up, and until next time, sending out much peace, love, and enlightenment. Bye, guys.